It's 11:33. This is our start time. First of all, welcome. Welcome to SCORE Bucks County's webinar on Introduction to Commercial Real Estate. My name is Linda Zangrilli. I'm the current chapter chair for SCORE Bucks County. And if you'll just allow me a few moments, I have some housekeeping items. First of all, this session is being recorded. You will all receive a copy of the recording as well as the slides after the presentation, so you don't have to take copious notes. Please hold your questions until the end. Actually, as you have them, put them in the Q&A, and we will address all the questions at the end of the session. Please refrain from using the chat box to advertise your own business as a courtesy to others. And I think that will do for now. So a little bit about SCORE, who we are, what we do. We are a national nonprofit organization. We have between 10 and 13,000 volunteers all over the country. We also have about 350 chapters, of which Bucks County is just one. We cover the entire county as well as Eastern Montgomery County. And we have a very simple mission, and that is to help start, grow, and prosper small businesses. So if you're looking for help with your business, or maybe you just have an idea and you don't know what to do with it or how to execute a plan for it, please reach out to us. Our website is score.org. We'll put this in the chat as well, /Bucks County. And when you get in there, you say, I need a mentor, and we'll take it from there. Because our mission is accomplished by free mentoring services to all of you who need help. And it will never cost you a dime. You can have as many sessions or as few sessions as you need, but you'll have a mentor to guide you through the path. Our mentors in Bucks County come from all walks of life. There's about 70 people. And they come out of corporate life, they come out of owning their own businesses, and they have all of the skills necessary for you to succeed in small business. And I forgot to mention that we are a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. So we have the power of the SBA behind us. We have the resources available to us through the SBA, as well as our own national organization. So it's a very powerful organization, and one that can definitely help you to, I see somebody says, I need a mentor. So go to the website, score.org/Bucks County, and you'll see a button that says, I need a mentor. And we'll assign one to you immediately, and you can get your process moving. So without further ado now, I'm going to turn the program over to the gentleman who puts all of these things together for SCORE Bucks County. His name is Ed Torello, and he is our seminar chair. Ed?
Yes, thank you very much, Linda, and thank you all for joining us today. I think you're going to find this very, very helpful. With us today, we have Gil Cheeseman, who's a senior sales associate with Berkshire Hathaway. And Gil is a very experienced realtor with a demonstrated history of working with and in the real estate industry. The key thing here is that Gil is in the commercial area along with home sales also. And we thought as a result, most of our clients, a lot of our clients are looking for commercial real estate in one form or another to either invest in or to put their business in. And so we thought that Gil's experience would really come in handy to get you started on your way. If you look at the little announcement that we put out on the web, you'll see all of his education, awards, and training. But suffices to say, Gil is a really, really accomplished commercial real estate agent, and we're happy to have him. Gil?
Good morning, everyone. I'm licensed in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. My brokerage is Berkshire Hathaway Fox and Roach. I'd like to thank SCORE for giving me the opportunity to discuss commercial real estate. I'd also like to thank all of you for attending, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I want to warn you, though, I'm knowledgeable in real estate. I am not a professional speaker, so please deal with me. What makes real estate interesting is that you learn something new almost every day. We're going to just scratch the surface of commercial real estate in this presentation. Now, I'm trying to flip the screen and it's not letting me flip. There we go. These are the topics that we're going to cover today. I'm going to tell you, I was in the same situation that most of you people were. I can personally relate to your situation. I managed a small auto parts store, which I purchased from the owner of the property. I leased the property for 2 years, which was a triple net. I paid the rent, the property taxes, and the property insurance. I was paying around $5,000 a month for the lease. This does not include utilities or building maintenance. The landlord was responsible for the roof and HVAC system. I was responsible for all other maintenance. I wanted to do upgrades to the property to enhance my business, but I didn't want to dump money into a property that was not mine. I was always told by the landlord that he could get more rent from another business, so I felt that an increase was inevitable. I paid around $60,000 a year in rent for 2 years. I paid a total of $120,000 in rent. So I threw away $120,000 with nothing to show for it. I was feeling the economic squeeze such as we are experiencing today and needed to increase my profits if I wanted to survive. I did not like paying for someone else's mortgage, which always being threatened of an increase of rent, or that I may have to move because he found someone who would pay more. So I started looking for a property. After several months, I found a property that was already operating at the same type of business as mine, in the same vicinity that fit my needs with location, size, and zoning, and also had an apartment above it that I could rent for additional income. I purchased the property, mortgage, property taxes, and property insurance was about $3,500 per month. I rented the apartment for $1,200 per month. The net cost per month was $2,300 versus the $5,000 when I was renting. I saved $2,700 per month by purchasing, plus paying down on my own property. I closed the business about 14 years ago, and the property is paid off. I currently have 6 tenants in the property, 4 garage rentals, an apartment rental, and retail frontage rent. My gross monthly income is $6,400 a month. Purchasing the property was the best business decision I made. Enough about me. Let's get into the aspects of commercial real estate and how it may relate to you. As a business owner, you wonder what my options are as far as where my business should operate from. Should I lease or purchase? Every business has different needs, and affordability is always an issue. Are you an internet-driven business that can operate out of a room with a computer and internet? Do you need room for inventory? Are you looking to expand your business? Over time, a business hopes to grow. Some businesses started as a retail operation and grew into the age of internet sales, and some newer businesses started as internet sales and expanded into brick and mortar operations, selling to walk-in retail customers. Do you need a storefront? Maybe you need an office, warehouse, and storefront. Each business platform is unique. Before you make any decision, you must look at your expenses. Keep in mind that bigger is not always better. As the business grows, so does its expenses. What are your expenses now? Are you currently paying for rent or a mortgage? Do you carry liability insurance? Employees, workman's comp, payroll benefits, utilities, gas, electric, internet, phone, etc., credit card services, inventory, security, services such as payroll services, accounting, shipping, etc. Accounts receivable, are they out there 30, 60, 90 days? What can I afford to do? Only you know your finances. If you are already paying rent, as I was, it makes it easier to decide what your business can afford. If you are working out of your home, you need to look at your profits and if there would be an advantage to moving to another location. Would the move allow your business to grow? Would you gain tax advantages? If you have a good accountant, this may be a topic of discussion before you make a move. Once you decide what you can afford, you should look at your business model. Home-based businesses, low overhead, limited storage, shipping issues if working with merchandise. Should I rent a storage area? Usually no utilities, shipping issues, travel time, etc. Maybe you do not handle merchandise and are a service type of business. Do you need office space? Can your home accommodate? Do clients need to come to your office? Are you a retail business and need a storefront? Location is everything. Choices are office, office/storage, office/storage, storefront. Once you determine your needs and finances, let's look at your options. We're going to look at rent/leases. The most popular commercial lease is a triple net lease or an NNN. Lessees or tenants pay rent plus property tax, property insurance. Usually included is the property maintenance. Property insurance is to cover the whole property, not just your contents. Usually the insurance company places a replacement cost on the building, which is usually higher than the real estate value of the building. And don't forget your liability insurance. As taxes increase, so does your overhead. Next is a double net. Tenant pays rent plus property taxes. Also, you maintain the property. Then we have a single net lease, which is what most residential tenants are accustomed to, which is rent only, plus your utilities, of course. You should have a commercial real estate agent and real estate attorney work on your behalf. Okay, next is purchase. Oh, well, let's go over usually a commercial lease is 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. You also have what's called CAM fees, which are included. Common area maintenance fees. You might have to fit the property to fit your needs. And it's always good to have an escape clause. Don't try to negotiate yourself. First step to establish financing is not paying cash. Not all banking institutes offer commercial loans. Establish a relationship with a commercial bank, usually a community bank. The bank will require you to submit a business plan and your financials to provide you with a letter of qualification. A realtor will want to see the bank letter stating your qualifications for a mortgage. In residential sales, it would be called a mortgage pre-approval letter. This way, a realtor knows you are qualified for a purchase. Commercial mortgages are much different than a residential mortgage, if not SBA. Require at least 20% of the purchase as a down payment. Bank fees are higher, interest is higher. Appraisal for residential, usually $500 to $600, for commercial, $1,500 to $3,000. Depending on your past use of the property, the bank may require an EPA Phase 1 or Phase 2 inspection, which is core samples, high costs associated with environmental. Most commercial mortgages, the business must usually requalify every 5 years based on a 15-year note, which means that every 5 years you would submit your tax returns to the bank to qualify for another 5 years of mortgage. If you qualify for another 5 years, your interest rate may increase. If the business is not doing well and they worry about future payments, they may call the note. In some cases, you may be able to negotiate with the seller to hold the paper or the mortgage. Usually the seller would require a substantial down payment and your interest rate would be higher than that of a bank. The advantage is that you would not incur the bank fees and all the paperwork involved. Look for a location based on business type. Have your team in place, which is a commercial realtor, a commercial real estate attorney, and a contractor. Please understand that a realtor or attorney that is licensed in a state to practice will not be able to represent you properly in a commercial purchase or lease unless they are qualified in commercial real estate. A commercial real estate agent will usually have you sign an exclusive agency agreement which says that they are working for you. And any property that they show you, you will use them as your agent. It will also state that you will only be charged a fee if you have them purchase a for sale by owner, if the owner does not want to pay the fee. Also, you will be asked to sign a consumer notice, which the state requires to be signed, stating how a realtor represents you. Make sure you ask the attorney what their fees are for a commercial transaction representing a buyer. Commercial real estate is totally a different animal. It's the wild, wild west of real estate. Commercial property values do not follow the residential housing market. Commercial values tend to be more stable and do not increase and decrease as residential properties do. Once your team is in place, establish what your needs and desires of location may be. Remember, just because a property is zoned commercial, that does not mean that it can be used for your business. Commercial properties usually also have what is called a use variance associated with it, such as OP is office professional, HC is highway commercial. Since the pandemic, the office professional properties have decreased in value. Do your own due diligence. Do not rely on your realtor or attorney for municipal zoning information. Look into it yourself. Call the municipal zoning office and see what the allowed uses are. What is allowed for signage, hours of operation, etc. Get the person's name at the municipality and ask if there's anything in writing that can be provided to you with that information. In most municipalities, if a property sits vacant for a year or more, it can lose its use variance. So beware. Oh, sorry, guys. I am sure you want to set up an LLC if you purchase a property. I'm sure you have an LLC set up for your business. If purchasing a property, you should set up a separate LLC for the property. If a lawsuit is filed against your business, it would be difficult to have the property in jeopardy. If a lawsuit is filed, the property, it would be difficult to get you personally. As they say, the pursuing parties would have to pierce the corporate veil. Also, you can set up lease between your property, LLC, and the business. Talk to your accountant about tax advantages. As discussed in the beginning, each business is unique. You have to determine what your business needs are. Timing is also a factor in what and when you do it. It is based on your finances, your business growth, and the real estate market. Try to look at your short-term and long-term goals, not just for your business, but also for yourself personally. Discuss with your accountant your financial situation and tax advantages you may have with a lease versus a purchase. I have never liked paying rent. I always felt that I was paying off someone else's mortgage, and it was not my property to do with it as I wanted. In my personal experience, my business paid for a property, yet now, when the business is gone, I still have an income-producing property. And if I sold the property today, it would sell for 3 times what I paid for it. Property is your best investment. They don't make it anymore. This concludes my discussion on the introduction of commercial real estate. I tried to tailor it to where it covers a broad range of topics that apply to most entrepreneurs. I understand, as stated before, that everyone's circumstances are different. Feel free to ask me questions and I'll try to answer them. Thank you again for attending.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Gil. A bunch of questions. So I'm new to the game and I'm not sure exactly what to do. Should I come in, sit down with you, sort of go over, this is the type of business I'm interested in, opening up, for example. Would you then say to me, look, I think that business, based on my experience, would work well in Bristol as opposed to Doylestown and things like that? Can you give me advice like that?
We can certainly have a consultation. As I'm very honest, I'm not aware of all business platforms, but I do have a good idea of what the foot traffic may be in certain areas. So I would certainly be open to that.
How differently would a nonprofit seek property and what qualifications are needed? Have you worked with nonprofits trying to, either open a school or an office or a soup kitchen, things like that? Or
Yes, but I certainly have helped several find different locations. But they would have to establish their own nonprofit entity. I couldn't do that for them.
right, assuming that was the case and they had it established, then and they said we want to serve the population, you could sort of, obviously you'd know all the different properties around.
Yes.
This particular group is established, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Okay.
it really, being nonprofit and being profit really has nothing to do with the zoning or anything. It has everything to do with the use variance.
Uh-huh. So how, in your experience, how hard is it to get a use variance changed? I mean, I guess if you're going to put up a chemical factory, it would be tough compared to a restaurant. But I mean, you've gone through this with some of your clients. How does?
There's always a cost factor involved in doing this, and each municipality is unique. Some are very difficult to work with and others are easy. But that's something that their attorney would have to do, would be file, for a use variance change. It's not something a real estate agent does.
Uh-huh. But you could sort of advise in the sense that, say, this town is opposed to manufacturing facilities in the middle of town versus city
Yes.
B, for example.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. What type of business I need to create, I would need to create to have, wait a second. Hold on. I need to create to have a real estate company like an LLC or a corp. How do I make, he wants to have a real estate holding company. I assume that's a thing for his accountant and his lawyer.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And is that for investing in real estate?
I would think that's what it is, that they're looking to, yes, for investing. He actually answered that.
Okay. So I see a lot of the real estate investors. They'll set up different LLCs. It depends on what we call a buy and hold. In other words, you would purchase it and then rent or lease it. And then you have for flips. They usually would set up two separate LLCs depending on what the uses are.
Okay. Nowadays, do you see more people buying commercial real estate, buying and holding, or do you see a lot of them buying, fixing up and reselling or flipping, as you said?
I don't see as much flipping in the commercial, more or less in a residential. Commercial real estate, the value really is placed on what the zoning and use variance is. So usually when someone purchases a property, it's a commercial property, it's mainly for their own use, unless it's in like Center City, Philadelphia or whatever.
Uh-huh. Right. What do you see as nowadays in the suburbs, the supply of commercial real estate? Is there much of a supply? Is it, a lot, a little? And how does that compare to, for example, residential housing, where for a while you couldn't find anything, and now it seems like it's sort of, the heating is slowing up a little?
Well, as far as, okay, let's start with the residential real estate. Right now, there's still a shortage of homes,
Uh-huh.
and they say that won't be satisfied for another 3 years. It's going to take the builders to catch up on what the
Oh.
needs are. As far as commercial, as I stated before, is a totally different animal.
Right.
Commercial real estate, it depends on what your uses are. There's a ton of office professional available out there. And there's a lot of retail out there now because the pandemic forced a lot of businesses to close. But location is everything. So it depends on where you want to be.
Okay. So are you able to provide lease templates or sample leases so we can see what provisions clauses should be included to protect us? Is that something the commercial real estate agent would help you with, or is it something you would do in conjunction with the attorney or
Well,
the accountant?
this is where commercial's much different than residential. In residential, you would have the real estate agent write the lease or the purchase contract. With commercial, the real estate attorney writes it. They write both of them, both the lease and the purchase.
Okay, so that basically when you're looking to buy something, you need to talk to your attorney because he's the one that has some sort of a template that they would use.
Yeah, and the reason for that is in residential, it's really a basic form. In commercial, each leasee or purchase is different. There's all different circumstances.
Okay, so you talked before about triple net lease versus, I guess, a double net and then just a single. I'm out to buy, I want to lease a building for a while anyway, and then probably do what you did, which is hopefully buy it. So which one should I do? I mean, they're all different ones, I guess, for all different businesses, but what do I do?
What you would want to do, which is very unusual with commercial, is try to get a single net lease where you would just pay rent, that they would cover all other expenses other than your utilities, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But with most commercials, they're usually a triple or a double net, in which you're responsible for even the property taxes, which is crazy because, as you know, property taxes don't go down. They always go up. Along with your maintenance, you have to take care of all the maintenance of it. And in my case, I didn't have to maintain the roof or the HVAC system, but everything else I had to do. If the bathroom plumbing failed, I had to repair it, so, but in most cases, it's going to be a triple net with commercial.
Okay. So let's go on to some of the other questions here. So hold on, I want to make sure I have it right. What advice do you have for a franchisee who needs to work with the corporate real estate department for site selection and lease negotiations?
Well, usually in that case, they know what you asked me earlier about what location would work best for their businesses. It's important that in that case, you would have an attorney be able to look over what the lease entails.
Okay. So basically, I think they're talking more like Chick-fil-A or Burger King or
Right.
one of them. Do you
Yep.
work with any of those type corporations?
No, usually they have their own real estate agents that they work with.
And are they independent or are they corporate or both?
That's a good question. I'm really not sure, Ed.
Oh, okay. How does an appraiser value a commercial property?
Wow, there's all different ways, and that's why the doing a commercial appraisal is much higher than a residential. They'll base it, it's very difficult to do because they base it on a few different ways. One is what like properties are selling for in that area. Another way is what they call best use. what the property would be best used for. And the third way is by what income the property can produce. So there's all different facets to it, and they usually do all three when they do the appraisal.
Mhm. And when you're going to a bank, obviously, to get some sort of financing, they require all three, I would assume?
Well, they would have their own appraiser go out. And their appraiser, yes, would usually do it all in all three templates.
Uh-huh. Okay. Let's see, will we get a copy of the presentation? The answer is yes. After purchasing a property, what is the best way to calculate the amount of rent/lease that should be charged? What do you do? Do look around what the rents are in the neighborhood, if you can find that out? Obviously, talk to the real estate agent who would know that answer. What do you suggest?
Well, Ed, just clarify the question for me, please. So is it if you're looking to lease a property, what the rent should be, or if you're looking at purchasing it, what you can rent it for?
I think it's both. I don't think they've made up their mind. So I'm going to
Okay.
go with both.
So if you're purchasing it to lease out, you would have your real estate agent run the comps to see what it would typically, what you would be able to rent it for. If you're looking at leasing it, you would once again have your real estate agent take a look at what like properties would typically lease for. And when I say what like properties, we once again go back to what the zoning and use variances are, which adds a value or devalues a property. So your real estate agent would be able to provide you with that information.
Okay. Just as a side question, have you noticed that rents and or leases in general in commercial real estate have been going up? I mean, things always go up, but I mean, a lot, or are they stabilizing, or what do you see right now?
Well, as stated before, the office professional zoning has decreased. It's gone down. I think that as far as your retail, commercial side of the business, I think that that's still, it's stable. Commercial real estate is a very stable part of the real estate. It doesn't fluctuate as much. Although, as we said during the pandemic, it did affect the office, rentals. There's a lot of vacant office rentals out there now.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that I've seen myself. If an individual has just one rental property, is this one property considered commercial real estate?
Well, that's a loaded question. A rental property, is it a residential property that's rented? Or is it a commercial property that's rented?
Right. So I guess commercial property would be commercial. Residential would be residential. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and the nice thing with, if you invest in real estate, when you go to sell it, you pay a capital gains tax, which no one likes paying tax. But you can do what's called the 1031 like-kind exchange, which means that when you sell that property, if you identify another property within 90 days that's the same like use, you don't pay capital gains on it. It's just rolled into the next property.
uh-huh.
So that's why I say it's important to talk to your accountant as far as what your needs and wants are. There's a ton of tax advantages when you own a property. you give that up when you lease a property. All the tax advantages are on the property owner.
Here's one that's interesting. Have you seen many leases to lease to purchase options out there?
You know, I've seen them. I don't like them.
Why is that?
Well, they can be dangerous. Okay, first of all, when that is done, I would always want to see what the purchase price is right at the time that I'm signing that lease with option to buy. Otherwise, if it's a lease with option to buy where 5 years from now, the owner comes up with a price that's out of this world, you just threw away your money. You know, so you have to watch when you get involved in something like that. It's usually never to your, it's never in your interest. It's usually in the interest of the seller or the leaseholder. You know, so I'd be very careful with that.
Okay. So here's one that's interesting. Can you talk more about how to approach your governing municipality in an open and honest dialogue about the options on how to develop a property without fear of getting shut down immediately? Would you entertain a non-disclosure agreement, I guess, with them?
Well, I don't think that any municipality would sign a non-disclosure agreement. And you really have to be open no matter what, you know, especially with zoning and stuff. So, yeah, there's dangers in it. And we know that everyone's not honest in these scenarios. But what really are your options? You know, you have to get, and there's a long process. I had a client who put in a solar field in a municipality, and he had no neighbors or anything to oppose it. It took him 7 years to get the municipality to agree to the zoning and use. So it's not an easy process to develop. And usually it's good to know someone within the municipality. I mean, I hate to say these things, but it's what I've experienced.
Right. Interesting. You'd think that with all the big push by the government for solar, that towns would go along with it, but it's not the case. I know some towns are opposed to it, especially if they're taking farmland.
You know, and I think a certain of that is true, and just some municipalities are just difficult to work with.
All right. So here's one that's interesting. How would you feel about hard money loans for purchase and bridge refinancing of the loan? Exactly.
I've seen investors use the hard money lenders. That is really, you have to move quick with that. In other words, you don't want them to hold that money at a high interest rate for a long period of time. So most of my investors that use that have a plan to finance it within a year of taking that hard money.
Okay. Here's one. These office spaces slash OP zoned areas, right? Is there a method to finding them? Do I need to go to the county, or I guess the town, and ask for business slash lots zoned as OP?
Well, are we talking about developing that, or are we talking about buying or leasing?
We'll assume both, and then this way.
Well, you really wouldn't go to the municipality. You'd go to a commercial real estate agent to find out.
Okay. Buying, the person is interested in buying. They sent an answer.
Yeah, once again, you would contact a commercial real estate agent to find what's out there. And then after you find the property that you're interested in, then you would go to the municipality to see what the use variance is.
Okay. Here's a question. Is commercial real estate is 5 units or more, or it's just 1 unit? It could be 2.
Okay, so there's another question that can go either way. So if it's residential units, it's 5. Okay, so in other words, if you have, let's say a row of houses, 5 units, or you have an apartment complex that's 5 units. Okay, then it falls under a different zoning, and it would be commercial. But if you're talking about, like I talked about my auto parts business that I had, it was a single standing building and it's commercial. So it depends on whether they're residential uses, which fall into the commercial, which comes under the 5 units, or whether it's a commercial entity as mine was, a single unit.
Okay.
I know that's a little confusing.
But as an agent, you could sort of sort it out for someone if they came to you.
Oh,
with
yeah,
that.
certainly. See, if it's residential, it falls under Department of Community Affairs. That's when it's really like a commercial unit.
Uh-huh. Okay. Are deeds transferred the same way as residential? I guess they mean commercial deeds. Are they transferred the same way as
Yes.
residential property?
Yep, same process. It's with the county.
Now, you mentioned before about bank financing, which obviously you've had some experience with yourself and with clients. How's the best way to approach the bank? Come in with a business plan and a piece of property that you've already sort of sized up as what you want, and these are your costs and expenses. It seems to me like if one goes in with that, he has a better chance than just coming in and saying, I need a loan. How has it worked for you? The more detailed, the better? What have you seen?
Well, really the first thing that you have to do is you have to have a business plan. And you would approach a bank with your business plan. And usually like I said, it's a small community bank that you would go to. Not all banks do commercial mortgages. And you'd sit down and you discuss your business plan with them. It's only afterwards, after you identify a property, that then you would present that to them.
Okay. I'll just throw a plug in at SCORE. We actually help you to prepare your business plan and to get you ready to go in to see the bank. So that is one of the things that we do. Other than a real estate agent, is there a website or reference that gives general commercial rent on a dollar per square foot in a municipality, like a quick lookup table? Does such a thing exist? I don't know.
Not that I know of, no. And you know, each area would have a different value, and each use has a different value.
Right. So it depends, I guess, talking to your agent, you will sort of lay out the plan for the neighborhood as to this has this value and that has that value. Is that
Correct.
part of the service?
Yes. Yep.
Now, in your experience now, have you noticed a lot of first-time entrepreneurs coming to see you to talk about some commercial real estate for their business? Or what have you seen right now?
Right. You know, right now, I hate to say, but people are scared. I mean, they take a look at what interest rates are. You know, with residential, it doubled. It went from 3 to 6.5%. Commercial usually is at least a point higher than that. As far as what you take a look at what's going on with the economy today and everything else, I think that people are afraid. to make an investment today.
Uh-huh. And you've noticed that both in commercial and residential.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about-
There's a lot of unknowns out there now with what's going on. I mean, we've seen everything skyrocket, from our gasoline to our eggs, and people are, bracing to see what's going to happen in the future. So I think that there's a lot of nervous people out there about what the future brings. Although, in real estate, it's almost like the stock market. You want to buy low and sell high. So usually when people are hesitating on something, that's really the time to make an investment, because usually you get a better deal.
Now, you deal with all sorts of folks. And have you noticed, I'm going to say, funds come into you or in the area where you work and decide to buy property just on the same basis that you just laid out? It's cheap now. Let's buy it and hold it for later. Have you noticed big groups coming in to do that?
Yeah, I noticed a lot of my investors that bought buy and holds. Early on, when the market went crazy, I contacted them and said, now would be a good time to sell. A lot of them said to me, Gil, you're right, but what would we buy? So they sat and held them. Even this morning, I got a call from two of them saying, hey, let me know what I could sell my property for, because I'd like to, possibly sell it, make a profit, and buy another one. A lot of the mortgage companies right now, because, they see that people are scared at the interest rates going up, they have now to where if you purchase a property now and you want to refinance it, hoping that the interest rates come down, that for 2 years, they're not going to incur any fees on you for refinancing it. So I think that it's a good time to buy. It really is.
Okay. Now, here's an interesting one. So can you talk about what's happening with former mall properties and how they are heading towards multi-use properties? I've noticed that myself, putting doctor's offices in and things just to bring in more foot traffic. What do you see?
I see a similar thing, even Oxford Valley Mall.
Yeah.
Part of it, they're talking about knocking down and building mixed use with condos above them. And, having commercial small businesses underneath them. Yeah, the malls are really hurting now. And a lot of that, of course, as we all know, is caused by, the online, purchases and everything. But there's, I think that we're going to see a lot of them, close down and fail. And it's a shame. It really is. You see it also in the Chamonix Mall is another one that's going to be leveled.
Oh, boy. Okay. Within the context of that particular story about malls, have you had people approach you and say, I want to be in a mall because the parking is good, especially more on the medical side, people can walk around and shop while they're waiting for their appointment that's never on time? Have you noticed that?
No, never, because first of all, malls have their own realtors, let's say. They're actually not realtors, but they rent their own properties out themselves.
Okay.
But yeah, they're hurting. If you walk through any mall, you typically see a lot of these stores are vacant, or if you notice, their hours are much shorter than what they used to be.
Okay. Yeah, I remember I had property in a mall once, and they required you to be open and closed on the times they told you. I guess that's gone a little bit by the wayside.
Yeah, it has.
Now, a number of people are always interested in opening a restaurant because the food they they make for their friends and family is great. So everybody says, why don't you open a restaurant and, serve this phenomenal food? So have you noticed a lot of people coming up and talking to you about opening a restaurant and where's a good location and what do you see for foot traffic and parking and all of that? What have you seen in that area?
Yeah, you're right. I see a lot of people approach me as far as that's concerned, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it seems like that the restaurants have the highest failure rate.
Yeah, it's actually the highest in America.
Yes.
Restaurant failures. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're looking to start one, boy, you can buy your equipment cheap because so many of them have failed and they're out there, being sold as used equipment.
Yeah, that is true. I had a client and I sent them to one of those places in Philadelphia where you could have almost anything you want for next to nothing because they're stuck with it. But have you noticed people right now asking for properties to open a new restaurant?
No, not so many. No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Also, there's been a lot of questions about should I open on like Route 1, a highway, or should I open on a secondary road, or what type of business works better on a highway as opposed to a secondary road, for example? Have you had people come in and talk to you about that as far as location goes?
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with what type of business you're looking at. Do you want a high traffic area or a high foot traffic area? So there's a difference. And if you're on a highway, you definitely need a lot of parking, versus if you're in a town on a side street or whatever with the foot traffic. So it really depends on what type of business structure you have, what you're looking to attract.
Now, if you were, for example, looking in downtown Doylestown versus Route 1, for example, granted, they're completely different, but how have you noticed the rent or lease costs on both of those areas? Have you noticed it go up in downtown Doylestown and go down on the highway or vice versa?
Doylestown is a very hot area, especially for retail, just like New Hope, Pennsylvania is.
Right.
But if you notice, a lot of the small businesses seem to, last only a few years because not all of them work,
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that you really have to research what would work best in what area. Even Newtown is another one,
Right.
where you see you have a lot of foot traffic, but something I noticed I think that there's more turnover in New Hope than what I see in Newtown or in Doylestown. So it really depends on what your business is.
I understand the rents in New Hope rather have skyrocketed and forced businesses that have been there a long time to either close or move. That clothing store, Savoni, is a prime example, for example.
Yeah. And it's surprising, Ed, that in New Hope, a lot of these businesses, man, when you take a look at, there's much to be desired as far as it's like the landlords don't keep the properties up. It's a shame. I've gone into a lot of them that, the heating had much to be desired and, the structure itself was in need of repair. And yet what they wanted to lease them was out of this world.
There's a case of quite a few millions spent on restaurants and overnight staying facilities. It's going to be interesting to see if that stuff actually all pays off.
You know what I noticed as far as if you're looking to purchase and hold and rent, this is going to sound crazy, but garages are a great investment. They really are.
Oh, yeah.
There's certain things that you have to look at in garages. And because I've been looking for them, I rent out a few myself, and there's low maintenance and I have waiting lists to get into them. You want it in an area that is not a great area, but not a bad area. You want a safe area. You want a cinder block structure. You don't want a wood structure. And that's for security. And the best ones are ones with high overhead doors. You have all these contractors buying those high, vans and such that have nowhere to park them, because in most areas, you can't park them outside. You have to park them inside.
Actually, I agree with you. And the reason is I have some antique cars, and there is no space here in Washington's Crossing area whatsoever. And I've had to rent it way over in New Jersey at a farm, actually, in order to find a piece of property. And I've talked to some longtime residents here, and it just doesn't exist, garages. So you're right. Just putting them up might be a really good investment.
Yeah.
Now, we have a couple of more questions. One of them is kind of interesting. Hold on. Does the tenant rep get paid by the landlord's rep? I guess the agents. Who pays who?
Oh, so in other words, the question is, who pays the real estate agent?
Yeah, on both sides, right? Let's say the tenant.
Yeah,
has an
typically
agent.
it would be the property owner, just like in residential. The only case in which it would be different would be if it was for rent or for sale by owner. Then the real estate agent contacts the owner and tries to get him to pay.
Uh-huh.
If he doesn't, then it comes down to the option. If you want it and you want me to represent you, you would have to incur these costs.
Okay. So it's not cut and dry.
No, like I said before, commercial real estate is like the wild, wild west. It's totally different.
All right. Here's one that's interesting on garages. Garages as in an old gas station garage, or just an open/available garage space? I think for commercial, you're talking about the old gas stations because of the high doors.
Well, not necessarily. Like my auto parts store, I have 4 bay doors that, have the 12-foot doors on it.
Uh-huh.
So I divided up my building knowing I'd have a difficult time to rent out the whole building. I divided it up so that those 4 garages are separate from the retail end.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you're looking at old service stations, once again, you fall into an issue with environmental.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd want to make sure that it's clean. It's called the NFA, no further action from as far as environmental is concerned. They scare me, the old service stations.
Yeah.
You're better off finding, something that was used as warehousing or whatever.
Yeah, I guess because those old tanks rusted and leaked, and that becomes a real problem.
Ed, the funny part is there was a service station across from my auto parts store in Hamilton, and he never pumped gas out of it, but it was an Atlantic Richfield and then a Getty and everything else.
Yeah.
So when he went to sell it, the state notified him, you have to yank the tanks before
Right.
you sell it. So the state showed that there were 3 tanks. When they went down to pull the tanks out, there were actually 6 tanks. They put the newer tanks next to the old tanks. The tanks that were installed in the 70s were leakers. The ones that were installed in the 50s did not leak. So
Go figure that.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. Who do you contact to get environmental, I guess, work done and permits and what you said?
There's companies out there that's strictly what they do.
Uh-huh. And how would I contact them? Look on the internet or ask my agent?
You can ask your agent, and you could also find them on the internet. And a lot of times a municipality would know who's, let's say, used in that municipality. But, the state probably would have a site that you could go to find out also.
Yeah, they're heavily involved in that. Is
Yeah,
it advisable to build garages rather than looking for old gas stations or warehouses? Depends on the zoning, among other things.
yeah. I think it would depend on the zoning, the area, whatever. That what I'm talking about with the garages, they're difficult to find. You know, you take a look at these storage facilities, man, they make a killing,
Yeah,
you know, and there's low maintenance. There really is. So I think that it would depend on the area and what you're looking at building and what the expenses would be to purchase the land and to build it and to go through the municipality as far as zoning. I'd like to try to find properties that are already established rather than jump through the hoops of developing something. But that's just my own opinion.
okay. Here's an interesting statement, but I don't think it matters. The environmental concerns was something I did not want to have to concern myself with, since I did not want to use the old fuel tanks. But I don't think using the tanks or not is what the municipality looks at.
No, they don't. When you buy a property, you inherit everything that is contained within that property, even the environmental. Now, if contamination is found later on down the road, you're responsible for it. And then once again, you can start a lawsuit against the previous owner. Like in the case that I stated earlier, where Atlantic Richfield had the tanks in there, this guy he bought it when it was a Getty. Never pumped gas out of it or anything. And there was a big lawsuit to try to get Atlantic Richfield to burden some of the cost. And that lawsuit has been going on for probably about 12 years now.
No.
So,
And you'll be dead before it's
yeah, exactly. And they make sure it's done that way to try to outlast you.
yeah. Here we go. This is interesting. Can you talk about property lines and the need for a survey and the need to know your easements, etc.? I think those are crucial depending on the type of property.
Yeah. Typically, I would always advise doing a survey of a property, because you find that maybe your neighbor's property encroached on yours with a shed being put up or whatever. It's good to know, if you're looking at building, what your setbacks are, from the property line. So yeah, I would always advise getting a survey.
What about the easements? Those are usually the things granted by the town, right?
You have different types of easements. So I had a property that I was selling for a client, that you had public service easements on there, there were high tension wires running through it. And then under those high tension wires was also an oil pipeline. So yeah, you would want to know what the easements are. And don't forget the wetlands too.
Oh yeah. That's something I've come in contact with. It's very difficult because they don't really budge on that wetlands thing unless it's to their advantage.
Well, there's companies that you can hire that do what's called the wetland delineation, because they're pretty sloppy with these wetlands. And this company comes in and really takes a look at everything. And maybe the 10-acre property, 5 acres is considered wetlands. A lot of times they get it down to only 3 acres is actually wetlands.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. I looked at a property once. You had to build 100-foot wall in order to, which cost more than the property. So you have to be very careful with that. All of that should be done by the lawyer and the real estate agent way before you put a nickel down, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And you would assist them, and kind of the lay of the land and the territory that you sell property in?
Yeah, I would put them in. If I couldn't do it, I would put them in contact. Ed, here's part of the issue. And this is why I say about you should do your due diligence. I had a commercial property in Bordentown on Road 206 that I was selling for a client. I went to the municipality to check on the use variances. So I was told that, yes, it could be used for this, that, and the other thing. I sold the property, and the purchaser almost sued me
Oh, geez.
because I didn't tell them it was in a revitalization zone, which meant he had to put new sidewalks in and everything else for the revitalization. Well, that told me that although what I was told in the municipality didn't hold true. So that's why I think that it's pertinent that as a buyer or even a leasee, you should always check this out yourself. Don't trust anyone else to do it. Check this out yourself. And that's why I said, if you could get the person's name and get it in writing, what they're telling you, which usually they won't do, but I would try to do it to cover your backside.
Yeah, that's good to know, and also scary.
Yeah.
What you ran into, because they didn't tell you that
No.
when they
Nope.
should have, I guess.
Yep. They should have disclosed everything to me. But once again, the woman that I talked to in zoning probably didn't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's true too. All right. Well, you know what? We're right at our appointed time. And first of all, I want to thank you so much. Excellent presentation. And thank you for answering all the questions. I'm going to turn it back to our chapter chair, Linda, for some closing remarks. Linda?
Yes, thank you so much, Gil. Wow, a lot of information, but the biggest takeaway in my mind is what you said at the end. Ask a lot of questions, do your own due diligence, research the heck out of it before you
Yep.
plunk down your money. And that goes to say with everything that you do, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a scary world we live in. That brings me to the next topic, and that is next week's scary topic is how to avoid scams in your business. So everybody's trying to get at our money, trying to get at whatever we are, we've worked hard for. So this seminar should be really, really good as well. So I thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Gil, for another great presentation. And I hope to see you all again next week. And I didn't say this before, but happy Valentine's Day, too.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Take care
Thank you
now.
again,
Bye-bye.
Linda.
Bye-bye.
And thanks,
Bye.
Gil. Okay,
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Gil.
Bye-bye.